So today we're going to take care of a couple of things on the Cougar that are just nagging issues. One is the brake lights. The brake lights have just been an aggravation problem on this thing ever since we started on it. And in an earlier episode, you seen me make a bracket with a little trigger on it. And today I'm going to install that and get the whole brake light issue resolved on this car once and for all. One of the other things I'm going to do too is, you can see, no longer running the tunnel ram on it, but there's still a hood. There's still a hole in the hood, so I'm going to show you how I'm going to solve that problem too. Actually, I may look into that issue first, just because it requires less time of me laying on the floor on my back. So let's take a look at that issue first. Okay, so previously I had a tunnel ram on this with a big scoop and all, kind of an old school version of a bird catcher or a Hilburn type scoop. But we went away from that and we're no longer running a tunnel ram, but it is still running a high-rise intake, and you can see that this does stick up above the hood line just a little bit, so the hole is still necessary. But what I'm going to do to correct that issue is I'm going to drop forward a little bit in time and put a eliminator style scoop on it. It'll still look good. The lace work that we've done will still fade right into the scoop, but the scoop will be a very low profile scoop, and probably work a whole lot better with that ram air type effect to force air into the carburetor here. So we're going to go with that style, and I'll probably make some kind of pan that seals the hood to the top of the carburetor, so that it really does work as a ram air type effect. But first I got to make the scoop fit, because this is actually a little bit wider than on the older one, so, or on the newer eliminator tube. So I've got to modify the scoop slightly and make it work. So that's the first step we're going to get to. But let me grab the scoop so you can see that. So here's what I got. This is not an actual eliminator scoop. This is an aftermarket scoop. But I'm going to set it on here about like so, and it's going to give the car a nice low profile kind of look. I just got to get it set where I would want it to sit, and I think I want it to sit more forward, kind of like that. It's kind of what I'm thinking. I think it'll look better a little more forward. Then part of me also thinks it looks better a little back. So I've got to kind of get my head wrapped around where I want it. Actually, I think that looks pretty well. I think it looks probably the best right there. Yeah, I think that looks probably the best right there. So at this point, the only issue I run into is the scoop is flat here, and the hood has this bump up right here. So right in this area right here, it leaves a little gap that you can kind of see there. So I'm going to have to finesse and trim the inside of this scoop a little bit so that it sits down over this. That is going to take some finesse work. And me, big gorilla, me no finesse well. So I got to figure out exactly how I want to do that. I think what I'm going to do is simply trim the inside edge off right here and spread this just a hair so it drops down over that. I think that's the simplest way. I think that way works well. By the time it gets back here, it's close enough it should seal anyway, so not too concerned about it back there. I kind of think that's the route I want to go, because that's really the best scenario right now, short of hand building a different scoop, which is an option. would be a terrible option. I do have the stuff to do it with. Let's give this a thought for a second. So on the one hand, I have this scoop here that I can simply trim the edge right here on the inside, so that this would set down over this. It's very low profile, very small scoop, and I can make it function. On the other hand, I could take some sheet metal and make something similar to this, but maybe start back here and bring it all the way to here, break it down here so it sits on the outside of this. It maybe give it a little peak right here. That would be very interesting. Well, there's some other stuff that needs to be done to this thing. Let's come back to this. Let's think about this and come back to this. Okay, so one of the things that has not been done yet is, since it's been up and running and been cruising around in it, is I have not put the Monte Carlo bar back in it, and that needs to be done. The Monte Carlo bar and the export braces both need to be put back in this car. So that's what I'm going to work on at the moment. And I had a brilliant idea to mop the floor this morning, and apparently concrete doesn't dry as quick as I thought it did. So anyway, if you have not seen a Monte Carlo bar before, there's two different kinds. I have both styles. This one right here has a bend in it, so it goes around the distributor. If the distributor is not an issue, then you have a straight one like this right here. We need one with a bend in it. And you will have to give them a little tap, just a little tap. A little light rubber mallet. Just tap it right down into place. And you've got to put a couple of bolts in one side as you go so that it doesn't spring around on you. But the idea is to keep the shock tires rigid and still. So I got to grab a couple of bolts. Okay, so I've put the two bolts in each side here and got them just started with my fingers. You don't want to tighten these bolts because the Monte Carlo bar comes with two holes in the top. You have to drill new holes down through the sheet metal on the car. Now, the inside bolts, they use existing bolts that are already in the shock tire area. But you have to drill two new bolts in the tops and drop two bolts down through up here as well to really lock this thing in. And then, of course, the export braces go from these holes here to the top of the shock towers. And then you're pretty triangulated in here to keep the front end stiff when you're doing the thing you're doing. You know what I'm saying? When you're, when you're doing the thing. So that's what we're working on. I've got this in here and I got it loose. Now I'm going to put 4 pilot holes in here. I will pull this bar back off and drill the holes because I'm going to use carriage bolts up here instead of just regular bolts. I just think it'll look nicer, and then paint the carriage bolt head black. It'll kind of all blend in and go away. And then the export brace, this car only had one when we got it, one was missing. But the parts car that we drove home that you've seen has a pair of them on there, and we're going to rob the pair of those off, clean them up and paint them and put them on this car. and we should have most of the stuff under the hood buttoned up at that point in time. All right, let's see how easy these things give up here. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Whew, he's not wanting to give up too easy, are they? Figure out what fits that. Alright, figure out what fits that. Alright, one of these is in great shape, good and straight and everything, but that car had been wrecked. So this one right here has a little, I don't know if you can see it good on camera, but it has a little whoop-de-doo in it right here. So I'm just going to use a little body hammer and my head table right here, just kind of work this out a little bit and try to straighten this up as much as possible. I think actually I'm not even going to use the table. I'm going to use a dolly and my leg right here so that I can work this back the other way. Getting it straight is just half the battle because it's got a little twist in it too. But we're going to work it out. We're going to get the whole thing straightened back out and get the twist out of it. Alright. See if we can get the edge here work back around now. Okay, we've got this edge here kind of straight now, worked out back. Now we got to get this little loop-de-doo right here out. I think I'm going to start by knocking it down flat and then rolling it on around. My mind seems like that's the best way to okay, it looks like it has to work its way down to a flat here also. Well, she looks fairly straight now. Maybe just a little more dolly work right here. But she looks fairly straight now. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. It looks almost as good as new. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty straight now. Yeah, she's there, brother. Let's see how it fits. Well, it seems that we've done a pretty good job of straightening them out. Good and straight. I wish there wasn't a glare on it. Good and straight. Over there, that's the one that was twisted so bad, but you can see it's good and straight now. This side over here is good and straight. Got them all bolted into place so that we could check everything. And I just need to come out and get a little satin black put on them. Got to drill these holes right here. You can see where they are. And you see why I want to use carriage bolts. See how they got square holes in them? So the carriage bolt will drop right in there just fine. So good and straight. That came out. So, okay. One more thing off the list for the Cougar. The export brace is in. Monte Carlo bars in. We've got a plan for the brake lights. Just got to do it. And I'm still thinking on the scoop. So let me give some of y'all the rundown on this car here that may not have been following along with it. Close the door and knock some of the glare out of here from the sunlight. This is a 1967 Mercury Cougar. This car was and is my mom's dream car. This is the car she always wanted. She learned how to drive on a 67 Mercury Cougar that belonged to someone else. The car got sold, and all my life I've heard about this car. So when given the opportunity, me and my daughter tracked the car down, and we've slowly been going through the process of getting it back on the street again for my mother. Rundown on what the car is. She wanted it just like the car she remembered, which was very much, it was in the 70s, so it was very much a 70s style car. Out back, it is running 295 60 15 tires on them. I mean, they're 12-inch wide tires on the back of this thing. The front is running I think it's a 185 50. I think is what's on the front of it, to give it that 70s rake to it, and that true 70s feel. The engine is, I think the math works out to 310 cubic inches. It is a 302 based engine. Done very, as you see most of the things I've done, it's done very period correct. It has the, I won't say the correct heads, that's not the wrong word, or not the right word for it. It has heads that could have come on this car. The block is a later block, but the heads is very correct. They've had some work done to them. It is very much correct to the kind of build that could have been done in the 70s, with the exception of the ignition system. It is running an MSD ignition system. It is running a Summit brand carburetor, but it is pretty much a direct copy of the Autolite 4100, which would have been what would have been available at the time this car was made. So I've done my due diligence to try to keep the car as close to what a teenager would have built in the 70s. So not necessarily what would have come from the factory, but what would have been something a teenager would have built in the 70s. So the 310 is backed by a C4 automatic. There was a time when we were going to put a 4-speed in the car, but my mom's knees just couldn't take driving it all the time, and she does plan to drive this car. At some point in time in its life, the seats have been replaced with high back seats. This car would have come with low backs, but they're nice seats. The upholstery is great on them, and I see no reason to change them. And they're probably more comfortable than the low backs would have been anyway, if we're honest. We put a B&M, I think it's the Star Shifter in it, which is very Air 70s correct. It screams 1970s. I've done as good as I possibly could to make this thing look like it's a true 70s build. And it does have long tube headers on it, and connected to those long tube headers right now is nothing but air and sound. And I'm going to change that. Going to catch some flack for this, but I don't care. We're going with some old school thrush glass packs, because that's what it would have been in the 70s. Again, trying to go very correct with this thing, and having a lot of fun with this car. On the list still to do is, of course, the brake lights, and I got to get the dash pad put on this thing, but it's coming right along. It's a very correct build, and we're having a lot of fun with it. So, and of course, I still got to address this hood scoop issue. And I think what I'm actually going to do now is, I'm not going to jump the gun. Originally, I picked up this cheap knockoff aftermarket scoop because it does appear like similar to an eliminator scoop, and I figured that would work. I happen to have every issue of Hot Rod magazine that was published from I about, I don't know if I've got some in the 50s. I think I go into the 50s, but I know I've got every issue published from 1960 to the mid 90s, and then I'm sporadic up through there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in and dig out some of my hot rod magazines from probably the mid 70s, and I'm just gonna flip through the pages and look at the styles and see what kind of style scoop and all it would have had on it. So I think I want to kind of go with something that would really look like it was true 70s hot rod. So we may take a moment. We may take a moment to dial in our scoop choice before we make it permanent. But we've got the Monte Carlo bar in, we've got the export braces in, and we know I need to drill a couple of holes, and for the Monte Carlo bar for the top of them, I need to do that, but I need to get some new carriage bolts for that. It's in place at the moment. So the next thing I think I'm going to work on probably will be trying to figure out this brake light. So I'm not sure how everybody else would figure this out, but since I don't know what wire is what down through here and I don't have a schematic for this, I'm going to turn the headlights on. All the tail lights work. I'm going to use my tester to see what wire has fire on it for the running lights. In theory, if I put fire to the other wire, that should be the brake light. In theory. Well, I don't know that works out every time. Alright, so the tail lights are lit up, or the running lights are lit up. So one of these should light this up. Okay, it looks like, well, come on now. There we go. You can see that. Looks like that right there is the running light. That means this should be the brake light. Okay, if my theory is correct, this should work. First, let's turn on the headlights again. Okay, running lights are on. I don't know if you can see them on there or not. Let's see what happens when we activate the brake lights now. Yep, we will have brake lights. Perfect. Got a bulb burn out right here though. Perfect. Now that we know what wire is what, I'm going to use my tester, and I'm going to find a wire in the fuse block that has fire on it all the time. And I'm going to wire it to that switch that we made a bracket for the other day. All right, we've run the wire. Now I got to rely on you to tell me if it's going to work. I'm going to go in here and push the pedal. You got to tell me if we got brake lights. Are they working? On, off, on, off. They're working? We put a little blood in the job. Blood always helps. Well, there you go. Out of all that, we managed to get the Monte Carlo bar in, the export brace in, and we got brake lights working. So we've accomplished a lot today. I'm going to do some research on what hood scoop I want to put on, and I got to pick up some bolts to put in the top of the Monte Carlo bar. But for the most part, the Cougar is pretty much ready to prowl the streets. I've got to order these tabs, put this chrome trim back around this, or stainless trim back around this window. But hope y'all like what you see, and remember, 500 subscribers, we are giving away a Summit gift card. So I'm sure everybody can use something from Summit, so please hit the like, the subscribe button. Drop a comment if you want to see one of the vehicles come back that we've worked on. Help us make the channel grow, folks. Hope y'all have a blessed day. Hope the Lord blesses you today more than yesterday. See you guys later.